Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to talk a little bit more about Quake Champions. Specifically, I wanted to talk about making sure that Quake Champions is a little bit more accessible moving forward in the future. At the end of the day, if you're at all serious about Quake, you actually probably want Quake to be successful, right? You want Quake Champions to be successful. You want to see new and old players return to the franchise. You want to see the game be popular. You want to see it have a proper community, an actual player base, and maybe even high-end competitive play, esports stuff. In order for the game to get there, it needs to grow. It needs to grab new players and say, hey, come play Quake. We want to invite you in. You don't even have to knock on the door. You don't have to ring the bell. The door is open for you. Come on in. Let me show you the ways, the basics of Quake, so you can then go to the next level and enjoy the difficulties of mastery inside of the Quake experience. That's what I want to talk about today when I talk about accessibility. I'm not talking about making Quake easier. I'm not talking about removing core gameplay components from the game to make it more casual or more random. None of that. That's not what I mean about accessibility. I think we've taken the word accessibility and we've twisted it. And we've turned it into a situation where it means Call of Duty and random score streaks and kill streaks that give you 20 kills and they don't actually require any skill. That's not what we're talking about with accessibility here. Accessibility is about lowering the barrier for entry. It's not at all about messing with anything that happens at the high end of the skill spectrum. It's simply getting new people into the game, helping them understand the core concepts so they can then work on developing themselves within those core concepts. That's something that Quake Champions doesn't do at all right now. And I know it's beta, and I know a lot of you are going to say, they'll probably add a tutorial. I'm not saying they won't. I just want to stress the importance of a tutorial getting in-game as quickly as possible. I also want to talk a little bit about timers and how I'd like to see them modified in the future for quick play and for ranked play. Let's start by talking about what I think a tutorial in Quake Champions needs to look like. As a new player to Quake, let me make that very clear for those who don't know me, Quake Champions is my first serious attempt at playing Quake. I've watched Quake in the past, I've had a little bit of experience with Quake Live, but not much, to be honest. Quake Champions was the first time that I actually sat down, did research, got help from the Quake community. People sent me to other professionals like Shane Raffa. I started watching his stuff on Twitch. I started watching old tournaments, Cooler, Cypher, Fatality, 0-4. Doesn't matter. I just went out and I did a bunch of research. I started to learn about the game. I started to understand the importance of map control, the usage of different weapons, and I started to implement that into my experience with Quake Champions. So I am very much a new Quake player, but I am someone who has found the core gameplay, after I've done away with all the difficulties of understanding the core gameplay, to be incredibly enjoyable, and I want to see Quake grow moving into the future. I want to see it be successful. I would love to see people play this at a professional level again for money, see tournaments and have this active community and this large player base of people playing Quake again. I think that'd be freaking killer. That'd be super cool, man. I want to see that happen. But if it's going to happen, again, we need to lower that barrier for entry. We need to make Quake Champions a slightly more accessible experience from the get-go. So right now, in beta, when you boot up Quake Champions, pretty much nothing is explained to you. If you click on the individual champions, you will get a basic understanding of their abilities and even their passives, which are usually tied to their mobility, but nothing beyond that. No one teaches you about strafe jumping. No one teaches you about map control, the value of pickups like Mega Health and Mega Armor. These are all things that you really can't play Quake without understanding, and yet that's the very first experience that people get when they boot up Quake Champions. Now again, people might say, Tony, it's beta. Yeah, it's beta, but a lot of people are using this beta as their very first go at Quake. So if this is your very first experience with Quake and you get thrashed and you're like, why can I not kill this guy? I don't understand this. This game isn't telling me anything. I thought I just wanted to hear shot stuff and picked up guns. You're going to leave. You're going to walk away. What are the chances of a player coming back at that point? A lot of people are using the beta as a demo, their very first taste of Quake Champions, and the deciding factor for whether or not they remain interested in the game going forward. So I think getting a tutorial in-game as soon as possible is very important. That tutorial needs to contain information that at least introduces people to the concept of strafe jumping. Even then, strafe jumping is still something that requires a lot of practice and a lot of mastery, but having it be a hidden mechanic for the most part, something that is only known to people who do the research, who have been playing Quake in the past, is just silly. There's no reason for it. There's no value. It's arbitrary when you say, but that's the point of Quake. They have to learn themselves. No, no, no. They're already going to have to learn themselves, all right? Nobody's just going to instantly show you how to strafe jump and you're going to be a god at it. Let the game at least explain the mechanics behind strafe jumping. Players can then understand how it works across the different champions, and then they have to go out and practice and learn strafe jumping. No one's going to do that for them. You're not removing the difficulty there. Don't worry about that. The same can be said for the value and the importance of Mega Health and Mega Armor pickups. The fact that those things are on a timer. The fact that you have to control them if you want to do well and beat out your teammate, whether it's in team deathmatch or duel. Things like quad damage, you know? Like, these are things that the game needs to explain in a tutorial right from the get-go. Even if they can't get like a proper in-game tutorial, sort of like Quake Live did, I think video tutorial would be great. And I think it's the first thing that a player should see when they boot up the game. Obviously, you should have the option to skip said tutorial. It should not be something where you're forced to watch it, but I think there is a lot of value in someone booting up the game and being able to actually see the tutorial. Now, there is one thing that I really do love about in-game tutorials, and that is that they throw the player into the game right away. Most people are going to be too irritated or frustrated if they boot up a game and the first thing they see is a video. You know, even if you don't understand Quake and you think you don't know that you need that video, you don't want to watch just like a video right away. No one wants to watch that, right? Most people are going to skip it. So I think a very intelligent tutorial where the player spawns in as a character. They spawn in as Ranger, and they're able to walk around the map right away and start shooting stuff, and you know, they can start picking up weapons. And then the tutorial kicks in and says, "Welcome to Quake Champions. Today we're going to teach you the basics of Quake Champions, how to be successful." And then, you know, the AI runs them through whatever. It can be a video, it can be an in-game guide of the basics of strafe jumping, the basics of pickups, including where the different weapons are, how they work on one map, and of course, the extreme value of Mega Health and Mega Armor. This is just an absolute necessity going forward, and I think, again, the sooner that Bethesda, that id, and Raven get this in-game, the better chance Quake Champions is going to have of building an audience as it moves through beta, and into full release. So this is why I'm stressing this right now, and again, giving you my perspective as a new player, because this is something that I had to go out and dig for myself. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone is, you know, is going to be as passionate about learning Quake all of a sudden as I am. I think some people might experience Quake like I did from the audio-visual perspective and say, wow, this is cool. You know, I was always interested in Quake in the past. I watched a few tournaments as a kid. Let's go out and do some research. There's just no reason, though, for it to be an off-screen, a second-screen experience learning about the basics of the game. It should just be there right from the get-go. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about the timers. So, as you may or may not know, Mega Health and Mega Armor on a 30-second cooldown. So when you're playing Team Deathmatch or Duel, as I've been really spending a lot of time in, you have to understand where those things are and when the cooldown ends. Now, the cooldowns have to be manually tracked currently in-game for everyone. So if you pick up Mega Health, you have to look at the time and say, okay, it's 7:40, I need to pick up Mega Armor again at 7:10. 30 seconds needs to go by, right? So that's a big part of map control and fighting over Mega Health and Mega Armor. Now, I think in a ranked environment, so if we had at game's release, or even down the line in beta, quick play and ranked play should have manual timers. I think there is actually value. Timers to me aren't arbitrary in a competitive environment where people are playing in more high tension, high stress experience. At that point, it's whether or not the player can keep track of the timers while also dealing with the stress of competitive play. I like that. You know, I like seeing players in professional tournaments make a small mistake. Oh man, I messed up the timing on Mega. I wasn't able to predict it well enough. That stuff's cool in a ranked environment. I think it belongs there. But I think it is completely arbitrary for new players in a quick play environment who are just trying to learn the damn game. So I think timers, on-screen timers, that let people know exactly when the cooldown for Mega Health and Mega Armor are going to pop, just like it already does for quad damage, would be very smart. Again, there's no reason to raise that barrier for entry in quick play. Make it as low as you can within reason. Let people understand these things are on timers, and then when they go to quick play, it's just a new learning experience. Okay, now I've got to manually time it. You know, it's just something that doesn't need to be there for that introductory experience that people are going to find in quick play. So there's my thoughts on that. Again, as a new player, the tutorial thing is definitely important. I think just about everyone will agree on that. But I just want to make it very clear when anyone talks about accessibility with the game going forward, you know, let's not jump to conclusions and think they're talking about tearing apart what makes Quake Quake. That's not at all the case. You know, I know everything they're doing with the champions, that's supposed to be sort of the point where they grab people's attention. I think that's great, right? That's great, you know, and there's no doubt that we'll probably see a classic mode or custom match stuff or more tournament play down the line where you can remove the champions or balance out health, so on and so forth. But I think that is the factor they're trying to use right now to grab people's attention. The problem is, that's great. Hey, those champions look really cool. Let me go boot up Quake Champions. Oh, man. what am I doing? So, you know, it needs to be, it's a two-piece puzzle, and they've got one piece of it intact right now. They think the champions are going to grab the attention of the players. They haven't done the necessary due diligence to make sure that players stay interested or at least understand the basics of the game so they can go the next step and actually start to learn and put time into the game. So that's what I want to see them do, again, as quickly as possible. There you have it, guys. My thoughts as a new Quake player, what they should be doing with Quake Champions going forward to get more people on board. I definitely want to see Quake be successful. That's why I made this video. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. You know, the idea of having match-made Quake, I think, is a really big deal, and especially if we get a proper ranking system with ranked tiers and, you know, actual background skill-based ranking stuff. Like, yeah, I'll play this every frickin' weekend, man. I'll do a video series every Friday, Quake duels, and just frickin', you know, do a live commentary duel every Friday because it's just so enjoyable. You know, it's an experience at its core that is skill-based, that provides a lot of personal satisfaction, a lot of room for failure, which can lead to success, and that's that enjoyment loop for Quake right now for me. It's like fail, make a mistake, and it's also conscious. Like, you know in Quake Champions when you screw up. You know in Quake, in general, when you make a mistake, when you weren't where you needed to be, or when you make a bad push, you're too aggressive, you're too passive, you know, you miss out on an opportunity. That's something that Call of Duty and those games that have more random casual elements, they can't do that. You know, it's very basic. Quake has that sort of failure, punish, succeed thing happening 24/7, and that's what I think makes it so enjoyable. So, again, not asking anyone to remove that. Let's just lower the barrier for entry and get more people into Quake Champions so they can actually see what's there to enjoy. They can get a taste for that failure and succeed loop. Let me know your personal thoughts. I'd love to know what sort of Quake player you are. If you're getting into Quake Champions as your very first Quake experience, if you're a Quake veteran, let me know what you have to say down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, remember to play smart, remember to play to challenge yourself, but most importantly, remember to play for fun.